All right, good afternoon, everybody, and congratulations on being the first group to actually listen to my 1-minute warning. I'm Jonathan Singer, the Senior Director of Policy Programs here with the Boulder Chamber and Boulder Transportation Connections. First of all, on this beautiful day, give all yourselves a round of applause for being here today, being committed to our issues with transportation. All right, so with that being said, we have a very tight time frame today, but I would be remiss if we didn't just do a quick round of introductions for our staff here. So when I say your name, please raise your hand, but we've got Karen Warminghouse, the Senior Manager of Transportation, Elaine Erb, there you are in the back, thank you for signing folks in, Darcy Kitching, our TDM Specialist, and Will Shepard, also here. So we've spread the room here. So as things come up, please let us know if you've got anything that we can do to help accommodate the situation here. Also, by way of housekeeping, before I do any other staff introductions, I definitely want to make sure that people know bathrooms straight out this way. So feel free to avail yourselves of that. And we've got water in the back if anybody needs it. So I want to just do a quick thank you to our other staff members who are here. So we have our newest employee, Joe Havlicek, over with Boulder Economic Council in the back. So thank you for joining us for BTC here today. But anything economic development, he is our resident expert and scholar. And then Lindsay just left the room, I think, because she is so busy. But if you have membership questions, please reach out to her. And then, oh, she has the coffee, most important person in the room here. So come see her about caffeine or being a member. And then last but not least, Devin Edgley, our Program Policy Specialist with the Boulder Chamber. So thank you all for being here. Now we're going to do just a quick round of introductions, and I want you to copy me as I'm doing this. So as I did the round of introductions there, just tell us who you are and who you're representing today. And we'll just go along the front row and zigzag back and forth.
Are we starting with me? Okay.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Bailey. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for New Car and Car in Boulder.
Hi, I'm Michael Scanlon with Planet Car.
Julie Duhane, Transportation Advisory Board.
I'm Sharon Alton, just that's it.
I'm Carl Morse with Energy Sense and Unlimited Transit.
Will Shepard, BTC in the chamber. Devin Joslin, City of Boulder.
Trini Williamson, I'm from the Transportation Advisory Board.
Amy Johnson, Boulder Valley School District.
Kevin President, see you.
Lynn Dysinger, I'm the Architect Director from the community.
Ryan Stewart, Boulder City Council. Chris Haglund, City of Boulder.
Peter Richards, citizen at large.
Mark Wood, contractor with Community Cycles and e-bike advocate and etiquette specialist.
Linda Overley, citizen. Carolyn Hales, community member.
Gary Sprung, I'm the Community Cycles Advocacy Committee and a board member of Colorado Rail Passenger Association.
Brett Simmons, Boulder Tech Center.
Chris
Safety and Natural Health.
Danny Katz with Coker Statewide Advocacy Group.
Kaylee Fowler with Dr. Cog. Would I Hester with Elder Planning and Design, formerly Urban Advance.
Sandy Dewey, Boulder Valley from the Home Board.
Evan Rabbit, I got together with a fiction that got to be out legalized e-bikes on the paths.
Carl Hansel, not officially representing my university.
My name is Bonnie South. I'm an independent graphic designer and branding specialist for Boulder Henry and I'm also a specialist. Lydia White, Inspector Bay. MC Marthaler, I'm our nurse, trauma outreach and injury prevention coordinator at Boulder Community Hospital.
I'm sorry about that, I'm a community member in chiropractor.
Lexi Davies, Community Cycles.
Nina Foncanter, I'm an associate broker with real estate company.
Stephen Davis, City of Boulder.
James Kirby, Zeta.
My name is Matthew, I'm on the Cyclist Core Community. We're different from the line with
Danny O'Connor, City of Boulder, Transportation Planner.
Steve Sampson, also City of Boulder.
Eileen Turner, I'm a transport planner with Bespoke Transit.
And I'm Kevin Kraus here, Boulder Cycle. All right, last but not least, anyone else who's not introduced themselves?
Wait,
All right. And on the Zoom here, we have Rachel Friend with Community Cycles and everybody else on the Zoom.
I think this is right now.
All right. All right. Well, with that being said, we're gonna go straight to our next part with our BTC updates with Darcy Kitching.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see you since we are on such a tight timeline. I'm going to keep this super short and sweet. I hope that you've seen a lot of this news in our newsletter and also on our social media. Winter Bike to Work Day, absolutely awesome. It was Friday, February 9th. We had a lot of fun. We had over 200 riders, several people from this room were there, which was great. And there's an article about it on our website along with a bunch of photos. If your business or anybody you work with invested any money in eco passes or B-cycle memberships or car share memberships or any kind of alternative transportation benefits this past year, you qualify or they qualify for a 50% tax credit. So please spread the information. Will's got the forms here that give you more information about where to find these two tax forms. This is the kind of the planning form for businesses, and then for C Corps, their tax form actually has a space where you can put your alternative transportation investments on it. So please spread the word about this amazing 50% tax credit, which is only right now available for 23 and 24, but we're hoping to see it go into the future. Our Boulder Commuter Connections program, which focuses on helping low-income shift workers, essential workers, frontline workers with transportation support for carpooling, van pooling, even gas money if they carpool, B-cycle and those kinds of things. We've extended our funding for that through a CDOT grant through the end of this year. It was really just a one-year program last year, but we've been able to extend it. So again, please help us spread the word about this amazing program that really helps people who need it most, transportation support. And tomorrow there are 2 RTD service changes public meetings. There's also one on Thursday. So if you're inclined to be part of these public meetings where they're going to be talking about their service changes for May, please weigh in with your support for returning buses to the Boulder Junction station. This is something we've been really emphasizing over the past year. It's so important for our community, and we really need RTD to get the picture that it's important for them to invest in those at least two, the return of at least 2 bus lines to the Boulder Junction station, activating our only transit-oriented development here in Boulder, especially because it's such a big part of the legislative agenda this year. So those are my quick updates. Next slide. Okay, so wait, go back one. Okay, so today we do have a special topic discussion on transportation safety, access and equity. We're rearranging a couple of things in the agenda. It won't go exactly as on your agenda. The Trini and It Could Be Me will be the final presentation. So we're just moving everybody else up one. All right, so without further ado, let's get started on that awesome special topic discussion.
All right, next up, please, everyone, welcome to, I was gonna say the stage, but really just this front general area to our Vision Zero traffic engineer, somebody who's been working in traffic planning since at least 2006, so nearly 20 years of experience here. So we're grateful to have him. Please welcome Devin Jocelyn.
Thank you. I'm here today to talk about a lot of the exciting work going on with the City of Boulder. I'm going to focus specifically on our Vision Zero efforts and our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application. But what I want to show here is the really the relationship between all of our work and how it got us to this point. Boulder adopted Vision Zero in 2014. Even before that, we were looking at crash data and finding out where are the problems, what can we do to address them, and that was handled in the Safe Streets report. And that led into subsequent Vision Zero action plans. And the Vision Zero action plan was updated last year to cover a 5-year period from 2023 to 2027. And that really led into the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant application that we put in last summer and found out in December that we were selected and awarded a very high sum of money that I'll talk about later. What I want to focus on here as well is that within the action plan, we now have 4 categories of actions and really kind of a honed in approach to really have meaningful actions that will best address the crash patterns that we're seeing across the city. 2024 is an exciting year for us. It's really a foundational year and a way for us to get some of our practices and guidelines updated and then carry those forward into work in subsequent years in 2025 through 2027. Some of the things that we're doing are taking a look at how we set speed limits. We're also updating how we determine where and what type of pedestrian crossing treatment to put in across the city. We'll be taking a look at our signal timing practices as well. This has to do with how we implement left turn phasing, how we do leading pedestrian intervals. Those types of things will be updated and looked at with fresh eyes this year. We've also done a lot of work to expand photo enforcement within the city. We were glad to have City Council support last December to pass a resolution that designated automated enforcement corridors within the city. And many of these there's a blend of both city-owned and then state highways that we're looking to expand photo enforcement on. And that's going to be going live at our first intersection in just a few weeks. At Broadway and Pine, we will be enabling speed enforcement at the existing red light camera.
Yeah.
And then we also have currently in the works the installation of 2 new red light running cameras going in at 15th and Canyon and 28th and J. We're also taking a fresh look at right turn slip lane signing, how we place green conflict markings along the high risk network, and some other signal upgrades that we're excited about. All right, the SS4A grant. This, I cannot emphasize to you enough how monumental and historical and exciting and impactful this will be to Boulder. You can see there, the City of Boulder. It's a little hidden down there at the bottom, but Boulder was awarded over $23 million from the United States Department of Transportation. This was the 6th highest award of all applications submitted last year. There were at least 89 implementation grant awards that were awarded, and there were over 600 total awards given by US DOT, but Boulder was number 6 out of all the funds that were awarded. And the map here shows where we intend to spend that money, and I'll talk about that here a little bit more. But we have two parts to the grant. There's what's called a demonstration grant and an implementation grant. For the demonstration grant, we're going to be spending about $4 million to focus on right turn slip lanes. And the idea is that we're going to be changing 8 locations around the city from a wide angle design to a tighter turn angle design. And we'll be changing 8 locations from a wide angle design to a traffic signal control design. And then following that, we're going to do a very thorough evaluation and reporting of the safety and the impacts on all modes using the intersection and going through those redesigned slip lanes. And then we have money to implement changes to the 16 locations to the configurations that we find maximize safety. For the implementation projects, we have 3 main categories of projects. The first has to do with enhancing existing pedestrian crossings. And the second has to do with doing work on 2 of our key high-risk network corridors. And then the third category is kind of spot improvements at key high-risk network intersections. And you can kind of see the summary and breakdown here on the slides. In terms of the schedule, things are already happening in the background. We're in the process of working with USDOT on getting all the agreements in place to get that money flowing to the city. But essentially what you can kind of see outlined here is that really by the end of 2028 is when we expect to wrap up all of this work on the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. I guess in the interest of time, I will stop it there. But thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And we will have time for questions at the end here, but wanted to make sure we got the information. We actually just slid in this thank you slide. Devin didn't know we were going to do that to cut him off, but we will move on. So moving on, I'm really grateful to have not just a colleague, but also a friend and fellow Fairview Knight from back around the turn of the century. Danny Katz with Coburg. We worked together as organizers in different parts of the country with Coburg, and his love of acronyms and my love of acronyms continue. And I'm glad that we're able to partner again in this new capacity. So take it away, Danny.
Right. Thank you. This will be one of the most annoying presentations you've ever gotten. I am going to talk about something big and gnarly and then walk away because I have 10 minutes. So I'm very excited for whatever. Oh, 15 minutes. Whoa. I can really talk about myself a lot at the beginning. Let me first just tell you, as Jonathan said, I am from Boulder. I live in Denver right now. And I run this organization, Coburg, which works on a wide range of issues: transportation, health issues, single-use plastics, consumer protection. There's a lot going on in the Capitol that I'm happy to talk to you all about transportation, but I am here to open a can of worms. I have a much longer slide deck presentation that would be sent out to you and can be shared, so feel free, you'll have more to look at and digest. But I'm speaking on behalf today of a broader coalition called Alliance to Transform Transportation, which is making a lot of grassroots nonprofit groups, including the NAACP, Conservation Colorado, the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project. Oh, great, they're all right here. I don't have to stand out loud. So we came together because we wanted to put out a gnarly, big vision for what we could do for transit in our region, with the idea that 2024 would be an awfully good time to go to the ballot and ask voters for something big around transit. But in order to do that, you got to have something big to start shopping around. And so we have put together this proposal. And even though the clock is ticking, we still have faith that there is a way to go to the ballot. And the reason we want to go to the ballot is it is hard to imagine a couple $1 million making a big difference on our transit system right now. And that's really all you can raise from some of the budgets of the different cities and counties and RTD. And so in order to raise the larger amounts, we likely need to go to the ballot. So that is an assumption that sort of underscores what you are about to see. In order to put our big gnarly number together, though, we made one other assumption, which is just RTD is really big. And it is what it is, it's what they've been, and it's what they are. But we thought to ourselves, if we really wanted to dig in on transit with the idea of trying to get the most ridership that we possibly can, then we really need to focus the dollars in on probably a smaller subset of the RTD region. We are not proposing some reform to RTD. There are others who are proposing that right now at the legislature, and you can weigh in how you see fit. We are merely putting out there, what if dollars were focused in a smaller subset of the RTD region with the mindset of how do we get the most ridership? What would that look like? And what could you potentially do? And yes, I'm going to say billions of dollars in this presentation. So if you go to the next slide, this is an attempt to go, what would that map look like? Again, I'm not proposing this is what RTD looks like. Others can propose that. I'm just saying, what if there was a way to focus in dollars within the RTD district, any new dollars in the RTD district, and really dig in on service? How do we get service to be much more frequent? Because we think service is king. And one thing we learned is this green line right here that's kind of our proposal for what a more focused area would look like, that sort of green border. And the reds and orange splotches, which are gonna be hard for you to see here, but please take a look at that slide deck when we send it around, is our attempt to go, where in the region has the best transit ridership propensity? How did we figure that out? Well, we took a bunch of data, including population density. So transit tends to, more people tend to ride transit if there's a higher population. Job density, more people tend to ride transit if it's going to jobs and places of work. And then also a number of equity measurements actually also determine high levels of ridership. So where in our communities do we have lower income populations, people of color populations, populations that don't have vehicles? All of those things combined get you those red and orange splotches. And lo and behold, if you draw this green line the way we have, you get most of the transit propensity in the region, and you actually get most of the ridership in the region too. So that kind of smaller green mapped area is actually where most people are already riding transit right now. And so we wanted to figure out, okay, if you could focus the dollars, where would you focus? This is a proposal, this is an idea, this is a straw proposal, so we're happy for people to kick the tires on this. The next question, which is the next slide, is how much money would you spend and what would you get for it? So we totally made up a number. No. We did a deep analysis and we came to this calculation, which is if you could spend $2 billion over the next 10 years, mostly focused on service and the things that are really important for service, what kind of benefits could you get? And so with a focus on frequency, all those blue lines there are what we could get if we spent $2 billion over the next 10 years. All those blue lines are transit routes that would come 15 minutes or less. And I keep harping on this 15 minutes or less. 15 minutes or less tends to be the kind of quality transit where people are not having to look up a schedule because it's coming frequently enough, that the transit is coming frequently enough that that really sort of triggers the positive ridership loop. And so all those blue lines are sort of the 15 minutes or better service we could get. If you're curious what it looks like currently, it's a lot less blue lines, and we have a map of that in our slide deck. And so if we spent most of it on just ramping up service, with a little bit of money for those additional buses, because we're assuming more people will be riding. Plus we did a bunch for bus stops, since those are really important if you're riding transit, that there's shelters and that they feel safe and secure. And you think about things like Red Rocks that don't have transit right now and other sort of micro transit systems, there's some money there. Maybe some speed and reliability, and then some improvements for safety and workforce, because ultimately we could throw all the money we want at transit, but without more workers, we're not going to get anywhere. This is an attempt at how we could spend a gnarly amount of money and get some really good benefits. But I wanted to start with the money amount, because too often I start with what's good, and then I leave you with the money amount. I don't want to leave you with the money amount. I want to leave you with what's good about this. So if you go to the next slide, please. This is what I want you to remember. Put aside $2 billion. That's just money, you know? So this is what I want you to remember. If we invested those dollars in a way that really focused on transit service, in ridership and equity leading the way, we could go from where we're at right now, which is about 35% of residents within about a 10-minute walk of 15 or minute or better service. That's where we're at right now. About 35% of our population is a pretty short walk to very good transit service. We could double that to 65%, or almost double that to 65%. Almost 1 million more people would gain that level of access to that level of service. We could also jump from 34 bus routes right now, which are currently 15-minute or better, to 83 bus routes that are 15-minute or better out of 144 total bus routes. That's not to say we don't need new bus routes, Boulder Junction, I totally get that. This is just, what do we got right now, how could we improve it? So, we go from 34 to 83 bus routes, you could upgrade 4,000 benches, that's half the benches in the RTD area with this money. And then there's some money for some of these other things that we were talking about, the first last mile stuff like Red Rocks, there's local circulators, hiring and training more drivers, and making the system safer. The last slide I wanted to show you though, is that number, $2 billion, again, don't remember that number, remember what I just showed you, but again, $2 billion, that number includes improving this frequency, so it's not just 9 to 5. Because what we know is that a lot of people drive and need to get around outside of that 9 to 5 time. And so we included the costs of extending that frequency, that 15-minute or better frequency, late into the evening, early into the morning, and onto the weekends. So that this is something where there isn't a Saturday schedule and a Sunday schedule, there really isn't a midnight schedule and a 7 p.m. schedule. This is at really any time that most of us would be wanting to ride transit, it becoming 15 minutes or better on those 83 plus routes, with 65% of us being within 10-minute walk of that. We think that's really awesome. We think this is a great vision, and we are currently shopping this around with legislators, the governor's office, city and county people. But of course, we know $2 billion, that would be something that would likely take a significant increase in funding, which is why we're saying, hey, 2024, while pretty close, there's still an opportunity to try to put something like this on the ballot for the region to make a big difference on transit. You have so many questions, and I'm gonna leave you right now.
Right, so true words never spoken from Danny Katz or Arnold Schwarzenegger. So we've got the contact information up there as well to take a look at the Alliance to Transform or transportation. And so please, take a screenshot of that, take a actual shot. We're meeting in person except for one person here. So take a whatever they're called, picture of those things. I'm going to do a very brief legislative update here because I want to make sure we get to our other speakers and then we get to a Q&A. Danny mentioned just briefly that there is a lot going on at the state legislature right now. There are discussions on RTD reform. I'm grateful to have an RTD director with us here today. There hasn't been a bill introduced yet, but that is upcoming. You're going to hear a little bit more about Senate Bills 32 and 36 later on today. And so I want to make sure that there's time for that discussion. But then also we've got a number of focal points on looking at the bigger picture, like Danny mentioned. And so this is a hugely promising practice. The other bigger picture component is around drawing down federal dollars for front range passenger rail. This is one of those really exciting times where there are these billion-dollar questions with some billion-dollar answers right now, in part because of major investments from our federal government. The question is, who gets those dollars? Is it going to be Colorado? Is it going to be this corridor? Is it going to be some other part of Colorado? Or are we going to share the wealth? So those are the things that we're very active on. I'll just leave you with this, and then we're going to move on to our next presenter here. But yesterday, actually, the Northwest Chamber Alliance, which was 7 chambers of commerce, including the Boulder County Latino Chamber, the Boulder Chamber, Longmont, Louisville, Lafayette, Superior, we're at the state legislature. We were talking with the Transportation Committee Chair in the Senate. We were also, in the House. We were also meeting with the governor. And, every year we talk about a business focus. A huge component of that business focus, 1/3 of that conversation was on transportation, on these very issues. And so, next year, if you'd like to join us for those conversations, please join as a member of the Boulder Chamber or your respective chamber in your city, because we need your voices at the table when we're having these one-on-one conversations with our lawmakers. So with that being said, speaking of lawmakers, we're moving from lawmakers to ordinance makers. So I want to bring our newly elected council member, former Transportation Advisory Board member, and all around great Boulder residents, Ryan Schuhard. Thank you for joining us today.
morning, afternoon. So I'm Ryan Schuhart. Copy here. Boulder City Council, my pronouns are he, him, and I was recently elected. So I've got my new corporate apparel on. You can see my badge up here, and just figuring out how to get oriented. So Jonathan, thank you, and Darcy, and to the BTC team and Chamber team for your leadership. I am gonna try in a few minutes to provide some of my thoughts on what I'm excited about as one of 9 council members. And I'm gonna just read from some notes here rather than do a big stump speech, because I actually have quite a bit I want to try to get through. So the first thing I'd like to say is thank you all. Many of you have been my teachers, are currently my I mean, in an informal sense, or are still my mentors and teachers. A lot of you I've worked with for the last few years through the Transportation Advisory Board, now Council. You helped me get elected on a transportation platform. And I want to just recognize that I'm here standing on the shoulders of a lot of you to try to see what we can get done. I'm also especially excited to see members from CU, Dr. Kevin Kryzak, who's written a book on a lot of these topics. And I invite you to meet him if you haven't done that. So I'm just gonna, before I forget, I have a newsletter, ryanwithboulder.com. If you wanna check that out, there's a new monthly one's coming out in a couple days. So I'm gonna dive in. What do I want to do with transportation? In general, I'm interested in making our transportation system more people-oriented, and a lot is happening. A lot is already happening in this respect. We have such an incredible wealth of experts, like I mentioned. So the thing in general that I'm interested in doing is increasing the pace and the breadth of what we can accomplish together. And I'm going to talk about a few of my interest areas, and I want to just do one caveat to say that some of these topics I'll mention are already in progress. So I'm trying to look for ways to accelerate them and also to figure out where we need to push more. So the first one is safe streets. I'm going to look at some notes here because I do want to be precise. We need to expeditiously deploy infrastructure programs and planning to bring Boulder up to speed with modern safe systems approaches so we actually achieve 0 deaths, 0 life-changing crashes, and do this in a way that makes our streets more hospitable, inclusive to non-drivers. I think part of that is about automating and making more of the default choice when we do our policy and our planning, so that we're not making the case for why we need safe streets initiatives, but why we have to ask permission to not do it. We need to reduce the friction and the veto power of getting these projects done. And we need to reduce the time that is spent while thinking about what we know we should probably be doing anyway. So a few things as far as local policy goes. I would like us to so I'm just going to tell you my wish list, and I'm going to be pushing for these things. But we should codify, first of all, what our last council commissioned, and that's the core arterial network. That's a series of arterial streets and protected bikeways. We need to just make sure that's totally protected. Secondly, we should codify. We should do what Cambridge has done, ideally, and say that anytime we make a major change on a street, we have to do protected bikeways. And I would also like us to establish a transparent citywide signals policy that clarifies all the things that means, including right turn on red treatment, left turn treatment, what we do with pedestrian intervals, and we heard about some of that earlier. So those are some things I'd like to do. There's some at the local level. There's state policy. We heard a little bit about that. There's a vulnerable road users bill. I think the prospects don't look great for that right now, but there's more work to do on that. And I would like to see more partnership with CU and with other regional partners around innovation. I think there's a lot of things that we could be doing and experimenting with that would help us to learn. So I'll leave it at that. That's safe streets. And I got 4 more topics. So the second one is parking and TDM, transportation demand management. I think we need a complete overhaul of the way that we think about parking and TDM. We should be eliminating off-street parking minimums, creating more rigorous transportation demand management policy citywide, and looking for other specific improvements. We should establish an integrated bike parking policy across the city that is increasing the level of minimums for bike parking. And this is in the weeds, but it's one of my favorites. We should be redefining the role of what our city's transportation administration does in code. It's currently written that we work on traffic engineering. It's in section 2.2-11. We should be talking about accessibility with a focus on providing a transportation ecosystem that has a diversity of modes and is reducing BMT. We need to get that right in city code, so we're working from that as a foundation. Third, transit, super excited about Danny. In fact, I told Danny we could pool time if he wanted to just use my time to talk about the transforming transportation initiative, but I'm really excited about that. More generally, becoming more creative about how to find the funding to do a more transit service, to make the service work better. I'm just gonna keep talking here and I'll do my last two. Second one, or the fourth one is housing. We need to create more paths to significantly new stock of middle housing in order to give more people options to live near where they need to work and where they want to go. There's a number of local code changes I think we can do this year that focus on streamlining what it takes to develop and also do some zoning reform. There's also a couple of state policy bills. Judy Mobley has an ADU bill, and we have the transit oriented communities bill. So I hope we can move those forward. And then the final thing, where I conclude, is not on the particular substance of these issues, but we need to figure out ways to increase our ability to make faster improvements and to overcome the inertia that stands in the way of us doing things differently. This is not about transportation specifically, but it's about how do we, as a city organization, 1,500 people, how do we decide that we want to make transformation happen and then go forth with actual change management to make it happen. So there's some specific things with transportation we can do. I think I would start with this general point that we need to be able to identify when we think we're trying to do transformation and then figure out what it takes to support that. In transportation specifically, part of that is code. I think it's literally how we define it as in our policy. It's also there's other issues around like having enough power at the activity for activity leaders to say, for example, we can move parking if we need to. We're not going to be stuck because it's in some sub-community plan. We need to figure out ways to fix that. And then the final thing on this one is with climate. There's a lot we can do with climate governance to improve the way that every department is required, is compelled to make the most climate resilient choices. So that's most of it. And kind of did it all in one big breath. But I will just conclude by saying I think the other one is I'm not a transportation expert per se, but I am up here ready and willing to talk about this and make this a priority. And I think part of our opportunity is to get more political folks who want to run for office to do this and to say, it's not just about what I'm going to shoot for, but I'm going to make this a big part of the agenda. So I hope that we can together create more space for transportation in this city council. So I'll leave with that. Thanks.
All right, well, definitely don't go too far because we've got one other presenter, excuse me, to bring up here today. So I wanted to before we go any further, wanted to make sure hold your questions till the end. We're going to put some chairs out shortly for our presenters to come back up and sit up there. But before we go to our last speaker, we're going to go to our second to last speaker here. So I'm looking at my thing and the arrows didn't point the right direction. But please join me in welcoming our Boulder Clean Commute Pilot Program expert with our senior transportation planner, Chris Hackle.
Yes. Oh, yes. Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so once again, Chris Hagelin with the city's transport. Is this on?
Yeah, sorry, you're good.
Yep. Good. All right.
Yeah, great.
Chris Hagelin, principal planner with the Transportation and Mobility Department, here to talk to you about an exciting new transportation demand management program. And this is a real partnership between Boulder Transportation Connections, the City of Boulder, and Commutify, which is a local company here in Boulder. And we're very excited to bring this new pilot program. It's going to be focused on downtown Boulder, employers and employees in Boulder Junction. So those two areas, depending on, of course, on the success of this program, we would like to expand this citywide. We're estimated that we're going to have a launch date to this program in April. And basically what this is a parking cash out program on steroids. So you may be asking yourself what a parking cash out program is. It is one of the most effective transportation demand management strategies that we have in our toolkit. And you can think of it in this way. If you were an employee and you worked for an employer and that employer provided free parking for their employees, that is a benefit. And that is a benefit that has a value, because that parking space is a value. We all know from Don Shoup that there is no free parking. You know, we'll look up that book, The High Cost of Free Parking. But basically, according to the IRS, giving a free parking spot is a taxable benefit. No one really does it, but it's there. But what if you were an employee that rides your bike or takes transit to work? You are not taking advantage of that benefit that the employer is giving to the other employees. And so you can get cashed out. And usually the employer comes up with a value of that parking spot that you're not going to use and then pays you in cash. Usually it's taxable, but pays you in cash. Prior to COVID, the City of Boulder had a parking cash out program for our city employees that worked in the downtown civic area. And you got $2 a day for every day that you did not drive your personal vehicle and park in one of the parking lots. It also costs $3 a day, so really that becomes a $5 swing per day. That adds up. That turns into real money real quickly. What we're doing with this program is that the city is going to subsidize and match the employer contribution. So if you work for an employer, or if you're an employer that offers benefits to your employees, we will match up to $1.25 per qualified trip to the employee. So if an employer is providing $1 a day in their parking cash out, we'll match it and they'll get $2 a day. If they're providing $2, for a trip, then, we'll match it up to $1.25. And this is being funded through our community vitality budget. Basically, what will happen is that any employee that is working for an employer that is in the program, that they will receive this cash money on a Commutify Visa debit card. Essentially, it could be a virtual card on your phone or an actual physical card. So the money that they earn each time they take one of those qualified trips, which is basically anything other than driving and parking at the work site, they'll earn this money, it will accumulate on the Visa debit card, and then they can spend that money. What they can spend that money on is any transportation service in the city of Boulder. So let's say, they work downtown, they receive an EcoPass, but they don't have a B-Cycle membership. Well, they can let those funds accumulate, buy a B-Cycle membership. They could use it for our Lime Scooters program. They could use it for paying for their van pool fares. Anything they want that's related to those transportation service providers. They can also spend it at any of our locally owned businesses in downtown and Boulder Junction as well. So there are some restrictions on where they can spend it, but it is basically to be spent on other transportation services or our locally owned businesses. Oh, went the wrong way. Basically what Commutify does is they provide the platform. They provide the software platform for both the employers and the employees so that they can track their trips. Employers can see how much employees are earning, and the system is there through the Commutify platform to transfer that money to the employers. On top of that, this is an excellent time for employers to enroll into this program and to take advantage of HB 221026, which is what was earlier referred to as, and Will's holding up the information form,
Free money.
the 50% tax credit that employers can receive for the benefits that they provide to their employees. So already, if you are a business and you're providing an EcoPass, you can get 50% of what you have spent on that EcoPass for your employees as part of this tax credit. So we're really encouraging people to take advantage of that. No matter what types of things, if you subsidize van pooling, you subsidize transit passes, B-Cycle memberships, van pooling, anything like that, you can get 50% automatically back. So hopefully this program would have a lot of employers sign up, and employees can take advantage of it. And then the employers, not only do they get the matching funds from the city, whatever they put in, they're getting half back in the tax credit. Basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna run this program throughout, the rest of this year. We're gonna evaluate its effectiveness, and this is everything from how we recruited employers and employees to do it, how the system worked, and then also the use of those funds by those employees as well. And then hopefully, if successful, then this is a type of program that we can expand outside of those two pilot areas and do it citywide. So, and I know we're saving questions for the end, but I kept it short and sweet. And so you can ask any questions about that program later.
Or we can ask questions about that program shortly, actually, because what we're gonna do, we're gonna switch it up due to some fun technical excitement, not difficulties. Some fun technical excitement here. What we're gonna do, let's bring some chairs up, and why don't we turn on the front lights for a second? We're gonna do some Q&A right now with our previous presenters to make sure that Trini's presentation goes correctly on. And why don't we bring our folks up? And I know that there are probably a ton of questions already. I'm imagining do you remember the Far Side cartoon where the student is sitting in the back of the classroom, raises his hand, and he's like, "Excuse me, teacher, my brain is full, may I be excused?" Like let's empty our brains out a little into the form of questions for our illustrious presenters who are here with us right now. Because I know that a few things have already come up. So Lynn, I know you had a question right away. What I'll do is I'll do my best to repeat it unless you can make your way up to the front here. But I know that there's been a lot of things going on in the world of transportation policy. We're so lucky to have one of our directors on RTD actually here to ask our first question.
May I just do a comment?
In the form of a question, we'll make
Form of
a
a question. I'll try to do that. Thank you all. There's a lot of exciting things going on in the transit and transportation world, and thank you for having us. And just a couple quick things. The bill that is the free fare for better air and free fare for youth through age 19 is going into the Appropriations Committee. There's a lot of fight for money at Capitol right now. If you have groups, organizations, others that can reach out to anyone on the Transportation Committee actually, I think it's in the probes. I am certainly happy to give you the information. I'd love to talk to Boulder Valley School District after this. The youth fair thing is shown already to be helping with truancy rates significantly. And RTD, in addition to other things on the ballot this year, may well be going for a debrucing. I'll turn this one into a question. And we're working with Danny a lot, I have been and others. The debrucing meaning that we pay off the debt on our base service, which is 0.6 cents. It's about $600 million that we get annually on the base revenues. And we pay the debt off at the end of this year, and we'll be subject to TABOR, which means we would be capped and could be as much as, looking at what others have paid, $50 or $60 million that had to be returned. It would be huge and crippling to transit in this area. And so stay tuned for that. We haven't voted to go on to the ballot yet. Danny, I know we've talked about how it would go with yours and ours, and there may be others on the ballot. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, if we could just figure out, transportation funding right now in this question, that'd be great.
Well, people just listen to me, we would figure it out.
Right.
Isn't that the answer? Let's see, so there are, I think, a couple of major questions that are coming down the pipe all at the same time. One is rail, so you already heard that. There is potentially a legislative, there's a legislative avenue for that. There's potentially going to the ballot. And I don't think we will have full understanding of their path forward until April. The Front Range Rail Passenger Authority is considering putting something on the ballot. As Director Geisinger mentioned, RTD has a potential deduction from the money they already have, which is not enough, which is a main reason why I'm working on the thing we're talking about, and that's gonna take a vote of the people. And then there's our pitch that we should go big soon as well. I mean, I think when you think about all this is like, where do we want to be in 10 years' time? And I think there's a lot of people who think in 10 years' time, it'd be kind of crazy not to have a train going up and down the Front Range. That it'd be kind of crazy not to have the train coming up the Boulder that voters voted on. But I also think it'd be kind of crazy if our transit system, or our main transit system was still what it is, which is just lots of buses that come once an hour, maybe once every 30 minutes. If you go to an Avalanche game and that game goes into overtime, you're not gonna have a transit ride home because most of the transit service ends around 10, or if you go to Denver Performing Arts or anything like that, if you're down here in Boulder and you're having a great time on Pearl Street Mall and you get in a situation where you probably should be driving, once you get past 10 o'clock, you just don't have that many options. So it's just, I think we think all of these things have to happen. There's a lot of ands in here, and how they stack up is definitely an ultimate game of Tetris. So all I can be doing is advocating for the thing that I think needs in the mix, how these things play out, more details in the next couple of probably weeks, I think. But if we want to see better frequency, better transit frequency, that's really hard, and it doesn't happen in a year. So that's why we gave that 10-year, $2 billion vision, because if we really do, in 10 years' time, want to have a lot more buses and trains coming every 15 minutes, we need to start basically next year. It takes about 10 years to double transit service, which is where we kind of need to get to hit the right goals, solve, to stop climate change, air pollution, and safety, and all that stuff. So I don't have a crystal ball other than it would really suck if they're all competing against each other. It'd be great if voters understood it all as one glorious package. That's probably naive to think will happen, so there probably need to be some pecking order stuff here. But I'll at least get already in that mix.
All right. Wait for the light bulb to go off. So Gary.
Danny, this is a question for you. I'm concerned about the anti-tax mood of the voters, possibly, that is going to be generated by these, at least one, maybe two initiatives that are about property tax. There's a whole lot of people in Colorado whose property taxes have gone up dramatically because of the increase in their property values. And so there's a significant political momentum to do something about that. And so there's going to be ballot initiatives, almost for sure, that are going to say, don't raise our property taxes so much. I'm concerned about an anti-taxation mood from the voters, a feeling that, so that might make this not a great year for voting for that. Have you thought about that? What do you think?
So, and thanks for the question, Gary. I'm gonna repeat it just for a Zoom audience as well. So the question was on, is there an anti-tax mood right now, especially with the dramatic increase for a lot of people, especially businesses as well as homeowners on property taxes. And by the way, just so you know, the Boulder Chamber is working with, there's a bipartisan commission on property taxes. It's meeting right now. Part of that is hopefully to head off some ballot initiatives that will be competing with each other to create a unified plan. I also, very optimistic person. So there are some things being kicked around right now to actually provide additional tax relief without gutting our infrastructure, but we'll bring the question up there.
Thank you. There's never been a good time to raise taxes. I mean, it's just like, and voters never wanted to raise taxes. I think we look at 2024, presidential elections are the best time to put a tax measure on the ballot because you have the largest voting population and you don't have to do much to get the voting population out there because the presidential campaigns are doing it and the congressional campaigns are doing it and the other initiatives are doing it. So if you want to win a ballot initiative, the biggest thing you want to make sure happens is your voters go to the polls. So 2024 is the time when those people who are the most likely to want to support this will go to the polls. We don't necessarily need to create a new tax. There are other things. There's potentially fees. So maybe there's a legislative option here that makes it so we don't have to go to the ballot. There's debrucing. So Director Geisler pointed out that for RTD, they don't actually have to raise taxes. They just have to be allowed to keep what they're currently raising. And that's way more popular because of the statutes in Colorado. If you're debrucing, the thing that people see is without raising taxes, shall we? And so that's obviously more popular than, you know, will you raise taxes by X billion dollars, which is what more like our thing would say. So we have done some polling. If you want a train, that is way sexier than a bus generally. If you want to debruce, that's way sexier than raising new taxes. But all of this stuff, there are paths forward from a polling perspective, like there's a majority of voters who get that this is important. But it would help the more focused it is, because I do think there are a lot more voters in Highlands Ranch who are looking to fund transit because they live in a community where that's not really a good option for them, and they don't have that option. And so that's why one of the things we wanted to do is like, let's say we could zero in. That would help from an increasing money perspective. So those are some of my thoughts.
All right, so easy one. All right, we got a question that's going to Evan, so.
I wish that happens because we can't zoom.
How, is there anything to help make sure that bicycles are safe? Meaning like not getting stolen, any initiatives, because you don't want to ride your bike a lot of places because it can get stolen like that.
So,
Even if you're good luck.
so yeah, I'm gonna repeat the question there for the audience here, but you know, if we want people to avail themselves of bicycles and using that, how do we make sure that frankly bicycles are safe, that they aren't getting stolen? And we're gonna hear just briefly in about 5 minutes here from Trini, we're gonna talk about how cyclists have safe as well. But Brian, you seem like you're chomping a bit on this one. I don't know if you wanted to mention anything.
I can't just present this if I weren't here.
Have anyone else?
I can't just share my screen.
Thanks for the good question. I think it's a great one. And if we treated parking our bikes the way we treated parking our cars, you wouldn't be asking. We had minimum standards for bike parking, the way that we create seats, a space for cars to go. It's so serious and something happening in cars, we wouldn't be asking this question. So I think there's a number of kind of technically easy things we can do in our city code to ensure that, first of all, we have the inverted U's, which are the kind of standard easy bike racks you see in most places. Those are considered to be, you know, sort of the gold standard easy bike racks. So we need to have those everywhere and in places where there's enough space for larger bikes. So we need to get to that too. I think just sort of going through the order, but the first thing is we need to have these relatively cost-effective bike racks that are of the highest standard, most places, and in the way you can access. Go to most shopping malls, I shouldn't say most, many of them around here, you can't get a bike rack that are high quality. That's the first thing. Second thing is you do need a U-lock with those, and there's some programmatic work we can do to help with that. I think in high traffic areas like downtown, there's probably some innovation we can do to try bike valet and maybe some new kinds of lockers. And we'd like to explore that. If you're leaving your bike, you know, over for many hours, you're walking away from it. That's important. Also, in people's homes, we have a parking minimum standard for developers of multifamily dwellings. We don't have that for bikes. We don't make it easy for people to take their e-bikes upstairs. And so there's a path there too. So I think the general answer is there's not one small thing, but if we treat bike parking seriously as we do cars, I think this will become a lot solved.
But do you think that'll be part of the issue?
This is one of the things I would like to push for. I'm one of 9 city councilors, so we'll see what happens. But I'm optimistic that there will be progress.
I mean, if you can bring the bikes in, it's great.
Yeah, no,
It's tough to like do your grocery shopping and you gotta go in somewhere.
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear on this one. This is, you know, a very complicated issue. And so we're gonna go, one last question here, and then we're gonna go to our last presenter. So, Evan.
This addresses Gary's question about money. Literally 30 years.
What is being done to get RTD to use 15 passenger vans on the local routes, at least in Boulder, that only have a few people running, and we don't need 43 passenger bus that costs 10 times as much. This is 4 times as much
we have anyone from RTD here. Huh? But Lynn, I'm happy to give you, if you've got a quick, 1 minute answer here, so.
Sure, I can do a quick 1 minute answer. I think I'm loud enough, you know, you're right. I mean, transit right. Biggest issue is workforce. We can find as we want, but you can't get the workforce.
That's where you get the money to pay them better, but not wasting it on gigantic costs.
Well, we have those buses at this point, so.
You sell them and it's 10 times cheaper.
I look.
I agree with you, there's places that we should be using vans, and we're working with the cities and counties to use.
It's a great idea to put on the table, and Lynn brings up a great point, just for our listening audience, that it's a workforce issue as much as anything else. We'll look at the numbers and crunch it and see where it goes from there. And I know part of the bill that's being proposed right now on RTD reform is actually looking at workforce. So, and how we can recruit, retain workforce as well. So without further ado, Trini, thank you for joining us. And we'll leave folks, if you want to remain up here, I'm sure there will be questions afterwards, and we'll take it from there. But Trini, please take it away.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm sorry for all the technical difficulties, and I hope that it all goes well. So let's cross our fingers. My name is Trini Willerton, and I'm a mom. I'm a cyclist. I am a wife, and I'm here to share my story. So that's me in 2018. I was an elite athlete back then. Oh,
Perfect,
there we go.
perfect.
So in 2018, I used to be an elite athlete, and like a lot of people here in Boulder would enjoy just riding my bike for not only getting around, but also as a sport. I went out on a normal day. It was a beautiful day. I was training for Ironman Boulder. I was determined to qualify for the World Championship, which now seems kind of silly, but it shouldn't be, because, it's a goal, and it kept me healthy. And I think it was a great thing to share with my children. And unfortunately, on that day, I remember there was a lot of construction in Boulder. And so I remember getting to Nelson Road and thinking how lucky I had been to made it there safely. Unfortunately, as I was trying to cross the road to turn, I'm a very experienced cyclist. I had been riding for over a decade, and I was one of those people that had tons of friends that had had horrible things happen to them on the road, and I just never thought it would be me. I was on the Ironman Boulder course. I was trying to make a left-hand turn. The next thing I see is the man's grill. It was an F-150 truck, the #1 killer truck or vehicle on our roads right now. And back then, the speed limit was 50 miles an hour. So the impact alone should have killed me. I don't know why it didn't, but it really propelled me to make sure that what happened to me wasn't what was going to happen to another mom and another family. When I got hit, my youngest one was 9, and all I could think about was how dumb I was for being on the road, which should never be what we think about when we're on a road. We should never be risking our life just because we want to be on our bikes for whatever reason it may be. So I was very lucky, because within a very short period of time, I was invited by Bicycle Colorado to testify on behalf of Bill 175. This was the Vulnerable Road User Bill. That bill went on to pass, and the whole process taught me that my voice was so powerful. And every single person here, your voice is so powerful, and I urge you to use it, like on all these bills that are currently on the table, which I will speak about later. But it's just really empowering to understand that, yes, we can all make a difference. Soon after I testified, I found myself there, standing next to the governor as he was signing the bill. That bill dramatically increased the penalties for careless driving. So when I got hit, my crash, I didn't talk much about that, but I was in the hospital for 6 days. I had over a dozen fractures. There was a point I didn't know if I was going to walk. I mean, it was pretty horrific, and it was only considered careless. So careless carried out 4 points. 4 points is all the guy got. And there was a community service and there wasn't even forced restitution at that point. And this bill came and changed that. So it was really, really amazing to be a part of that process and how much I learned. I went on to then join other advocates around the world to change other laws around the country. But this is a video that we did. So as the journey went on, I started joining forces with advocates in Boulder, cyclists for community. I don't know if he's here. Yeah. So we co-produced this video, and I think they perfectly captured the production people, captured what it was that I was trying to tell people, which is that we're all people on our bikes. It could be any of us out there. And hopefully the video will play, which was what was the struggle. Ah, there it is. Oh, there's no audio?
Yeah, let's see here. I'm sure the people on Zoom are hearing this perfectly. Well, we're not. So.
So I'll just share that. Well, that's one of our friends. This was all done during COVID. The little boy is my son. The cyclist is one of our really dear friends. That's Pete Piccolo, the executive director of Bicycle Colorado. The little girl is the daughter of the director. So we had to stay within like our little COVID bubble. So it presented its own set of challenges, but I think they did a really great job. Unfortunately, you don't have the audio, but there's not much. It's just at the end.
Let's just see if.
Yeah. Atramonte or
Because you will make roads safer together. We'll make roads safer together.
Yeah. So let's see if I can go to the next slide. Maybe not. Well,
one of my favorite parts of any PowerPoint presentation is trying to embed video. It's slightly harder than planning for Colorado's transportation future. So
there we go. And, you know, there's another reason why we should care. It's not only about safety, but it's about the money that, you know, just outdoor recreation generates for our economy. So, you know, there's all points of view. Oh, we need him to be heard. I'm sorry.
I don't know who this guy is.
No,
I'm kidding.
About a crisis on our country's roads and streets.
Oh.
Just about every one of us has lost people we know and care about to car crashes. Crashes kill as many people in America as gun violence, and yet road safety gets less attention than so many other transportation issues. When we do think of it, we too often think of it as inevitable, as if it were a painful fact of life. But these road deaths are not inevitable, and every one of us has the power to do something about them. About a year ago, we released our National Roadway Safety Strategy, a plan to save lives through safer speeds, safer roads, safer people, safer vehicles, and better standards of post-crash care. And earlier this week, we announced $800 million in grants for hundreds of communities across the country to help them make their streets safer for everyone. We are doing unprecedented work here at the federal level, but facing this challenge will require all of us to be involved. We need to build greater awareness, cultivate motivated communities, harness better technology, more research, smarter planning, safer design, and infrastructure that keeps us all safe, whether you're in a car, riding a bike, pushing a stroller, out for a walk, or using a wheelchair. Dozens of companies, agencies, jurisdictions, and organizations have already committed to doing their part. Now I'm asking you to join us and do the same. Together, we are setting America on a course to reduce traffic deaths to the only acceptable number, and that is 0.
So I am one of the biggest fans of Secretary Buttigieg, and this was something after a year. Like I said, I established It Could Be Me after I realized that, everybody's voice was so powerful, and I started working at a local level with Cyclists for Community, and then I started exploring at a national level what well, that's me. What I could do, and I guess we could share this. This is part of what Secretary Buttigieg was talking about, which is the allies in action. And it's a call to action for stakeholders around the country to commit to do something to change the narrative. And so this is what we committed to as It Could Be Me. It's a threefold thing.
My name is Trini Willerton, and I'm the president and founder of It Could Be Me. And today I'm here to talk to you about our commitment to the National Roadway Safety Strategy as Allies in Action. Our approach is a threefold. Firstly, we've established a year-long program featuring monthly virtual support group sessions. These sessions provide a crucial lifeline for crash survivors, their friends, and family members. In addition to support, we've recognized the power of storytelling, and that's why we offer media training workshops which empower survivors to confidently share their experiences. Through these workshops, survivors become advocates for change, raising awareness and contributing to a culture of responsibility on the road. Our third commitment involves a dynamic collaboration with CDOT, the Colorado Department of Transportation. Together, we've launched a compelling messaging campaign advocating for the safe systems approach. We're urging everyone to slow down and stay safe, emphasizing that each action contributes to the collective goal of safer roads. Join us on this journey where we actively engage, support, and collaborate for meaningful change. We need you.
So they're asking for more collaborations. So if you are ready and you want to, please join us, because it's very important. We have 160 allies in action. We were just in DC celebrating the 2nd anniversary of the National Roadway Safety Strategy. And it was amazing to get to meet a lot of the people that are collaborating. Something's dying, but I'll just try to wrap it up. I think that I thought I had more time, but I want to focus on the bills that are currently on the table, which are really, really important. Yesterday, I was at the Capitol for an event that Bicycle Colorado puts on called Safe Streets at the Capitol. And it was incredible to see the whole Boulder Junior cycling team there. By the way, sorry. They got to talk to the governor about one of the bills, and it was really, I've been at the Capitol several times, and every time that there's kids involved, it's just a totally different ambiance. And how can you say no to kids? That's why we use them on our campaign. And yeah, I'm trying to balance my notes. I don't know if I play this, what's gonna come to. Oh, yeah, and then last year, they asked me if I could help share my story as part of this distracted driving campaign for CDOT. And it just goes to highlight, if you have a story, please join It Could Be Me and share your story, because it makes the difference between just, having people realize that we're not just numbers, we're people, we're family members, we're moms, and our stories matter. So we did this campaign with CDOT, and this was done here in Boulder, and it was in Spanish and in English. So, and I skipped it, so. Okay, and lastly, I'm gonna share something really cool that happened. So I've been exploring as many avenues as I can at a national level to collaborate and because I believe that that's the way we're gonna change the narrative. We need to work together. And so in this journey, I worked with NHTSA, I've worked with Families for Safe Streets, I've worked with the National Safety Council, with a lot of organizations. And one day, looking up, and there was a call for applicants for the Transforming Transportation Advisory Committee. It was basically focused on technology, so I was a little bit intimidated, but there was also a need for advocates. And so I asked some colleagues to nominate me because it's a nomination process, it was an open docket, and a year later, I heard back. And so I've already been, this was a photo from our inaugural meeting. This is what we aim to do. There's 27 of us. The expertise is very diverse. We have a very eclectic and a really great group of people. And I'm very honored to be part of this. I'll be there for 2 years. We've divided into subcommittees for the moment, and I am starting my meetings this week on a weekly basis. This is something that Secretary Buttigieg said about the committee and why he thinks it's important. And really, I mean, it's just such an honor to be in that room with all these brilliant minds. Thanks, Jeannie.
All right.
Is that it?
We got a minute for questions.
So those are two of the kids from Boulder Junior Cycling.
So we've got about another 2 minutes left for questions here, for our panel here. So grateful to have all of you. I agree with Trini, you know, kids make adults act more like adults. So if we can bring them into these environments, I think it's perfect. So let's go with 2 more questions and then we've got to wrap things up. I'll start in the front and then I'll move to the back. So yeah, Sheila.
Chris, I wanted to know, with the pilot program that you're working on, what's the number of employees and employers that are kind of in that pool and in that area that you've identified?
So, all right, and Chris, if you could repeat the question too. Sorry, that's all right.
Yes. So basically for the pilot program we're doing with Commutify, what's kind of the number of employees that would be eligible, I guess, for this type of program. So in the downtown area, we roughly have about 8,000 employees.
Okay.
In about 1,000 different employers.
Okay.
So there's a lot of very small little shops there. In Boulder Junction, I think, you know, counting Google, we're looking at probably about 1,100, 1,200.
With Google,
employees?
16 to 1,800.
You know, 16 to 1,800 now with employees, and probably about, I mean, Google makes up the majority of that, so.
There's several 200 count businesses.
Yeah, Rocky Mountain Institute.
That's starting to change.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a wide area, and, you know, basically, we need the employer to sign up for the program so that their employees would be eligible for the matching funds
Right.
from the city.
Great.
Yes.
All right, and last question in the back. Yeah.
This is probably mostly a question for Devin. It's about red light camera deployment. I asked for Empire Boulder, didn't get a very satisfactory answer. I think from what I've read, those are very effective deterrents to people doing stupid things at intersections. And I see so much of that, especially as a bike commuter, that it's really scary. But I realize they cost a lot of money. I've read that Excel owns some of the traffic lights. And so that might be an impediment to deploying more red light cameras, but what do you see as any limitations towards doing more of that?
Sure, so in short, the question is, what are some limitations to deploying more red light cameras across the city? I will start with, the City of Boulder. For those that don't know, we've had a photo enforcement program in place for over 25 years, since 1998. So our program is very mature, and over that time, we have deployed, I think, 13 red light camera sites across the city. And really within engineering, it's kind of a leveling up decision process whereby you look at each intersection and each intersection approach, and you determine, have we done all that we can to prevent people from running the red light? Or has the red light resulted in crashes? And that's kind of the main thing we look at is there a crash trend? Is the signal built appropriately? Is it timed appropriately? And if all those factors kind of are not in place, then that's when you start to look at red light cameras.
And, yeah, I have to say, to be fair, it's not always fair to ask city staff things, you know, at the federal level, we have Mayor Pete because we can't pronounce his last name. Here we have Councilmember Ryan. So Councilmember Ryan, if you want to tell us a little bit about the red light.
Thanks for the good question. I have the question too. I don't have the answer. Thanks, Devin, but I want to explore that. And I want to point out that we have a city council language, a study session coming up soon on safe streets and Vision Zero. So every other meeting, one meeting is a so-called business meeting in person, and that's when we come to have hearings and such. A study session is virtual, and it's just, we're going into deep dives on topics. So we have one. I've asked for this meeting. It will be, I think, in April now. And we're gonna have a chance to ask for a presentation on these kinds of topics. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in, who has more questions like this for city council and the staff to think about that study session. You can post questions, you can send them to me directly, and I'll help us to try to have a discussion about it. I'm very interested in this question as well.
All right, folks. Well, on that note, with the study session coming up, I hope the two of you connect after this, and I hope, I know some of our speakers have schedules to get to. I'm sure you do as well, but on behalf of the entire BTC team, as well as our speakers, let's give them one final round of applause.